Today I'm making the best sourdough waffles. I wish I could share a little bite of these waffles with you because you would definitely want to make them if you knew how good they were. To make these sourdough waffles, we're going to start with some sourdough starter or sourdough discard. Either one will work just fine for this recipe. If you're needing a shortcut to sourdough, I've freeze-dried my own starter to get you started. It's on my website, robinonthefarm.com. For these sourdough waffles, you'll want 200 grams or 3/4 of a cup of starter or discard. I'm using my scale today, but I'll also give you the recipe in cups and spoons. And I'll have the printable recipe available on my website also. Next, we want some milk. I like whole milk, but you can also use a lower fat milk or a plant-based milk too. Or buttermilk is really good in this recipe also. You're going to want 185 grams or 3/4 of a cup of milk. Now this is just cold milk straight from the fridge. It's not warmed up or anything like that for this recipe. Now I'm going to add some vanilla extract. I want 10 grams of vanilla, which is 2 teaspoons. You can also change it up and use some almond, maple, even lemon extract. That's really good in these waffles. I'm making these waffles sugar-free, so the extract really adds some good flavor. But you can also add some sugar or honey. I'd add about 2 tablespoons or 40 grams if you want to. I've melted 4 tablespoons of butter in my cast iron melting pot. That's 55 grams of melted butter. So add that right on into your bowl with everything else. Now it's time to add some flour. Now I'm going to use all-purpose flour in this recipe today, but I very often use fresh milled flour. So you can definitely use fresh milled flour if you'd rather do that in these sourdough waffles. But I'm going to use 180 grams or 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Now I'm going to grab my Danish dough whisk. This Danish dough whisk is great for sourdoughs and mixing really thick batters. So I'm going to give all of these ingredients a really good whisk. We still have more ingredients to add, but at this point I'm going to let this ferment overnight. But you can definitely just make this all the morning of exactly the same way. Just skip this ferment. If you're going to do an overnight ferment, go ahead and cover it with wrap and let it sit on the countertop. You'll get all those awesome benefits of sourdough that way, and you'll get even better flavor. So I'll show this to you in the morning. It's early in the morning now, and my batter for my sourdough waffles has been sitting on the countertop fermenting for about 8 hours. You can see that it's bubbly. It looks great. Now remember, you don't have to do it this way. You don't have to let it overnight ferment. You can just make it all at one time if you want. Now we're going to add some baking powder. We want 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of baking powder. And next we want some baking soda. We're going to add 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of baking soda. I buy my baking soda in 10-pound bags, and then I store it in these little jars just in the pantry, but it lasts forever and it's great to have a bunch in your food storage. Next, we're going to use some salt. I really like using this Redmond's Real Salt, but we're going to use 1 teaspoon or 6 grams of this salt. Definitely pour it away from your bowl so that if you over pour it, it won't ruin all of the work you've already put into these sourdough waffles. So 1 teaspoon or 6 grams right on into your mixing bowl. And our very last ingredient for these sourdough waffles is 1 egg. You want 1 large egg. Just put it right on into your bowl with everything else. Now I'm going to grab my Danish dough whisk one more time, and I'm going to give all of these ingredients a really good whisk. Once your batter's all mixed up, go ahead and let your batter rest while your waffle iron heats up. I feel like my batter's a little bit thick, so I'm going to add just a splash of milk to help thin it down a little bit. This will just make it easier to pour my batter into the waffle iron. But you can add up to about 1/4 cup of milk if you need to thin your batter down a little bit. And it really doesn't matter how thick or thin you have this batter. It really doesn't matter for these sourdough waffles. So make it however thick or thin you want it. And now it's time to make our waffles. I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of this batter into my waffle iron and let it bake. It's only going to take a few minutes, and this recipe will make about 6 good-sized waffles. Our sourdough waffle is done. Look how delicious this looks. And I wish you could smell it. These waffles smell so good. I'm just going to keep it really simple this morning and serve these with a little bit of sweet cream butter and some real maple syrup, just to be a little bit healthier, and these are going to be delicious. But if you have some strawberries, some bananas, some whipped cream, oh my goodness, you can make it such a fancy special breakfast. These really are the very best sourdough waffles. I love these. Now remember, you can also use this exact same recipe and make pancakes out of this. And pancakes are fantastic too. I'll leave the link to the printable recipe down in the description, or it's also on my website, robinonthefarm.com. Thanks so much for being here with me today. Be sure to try some of my other sourdough recipes too. I'll see you next time on Robin on the Farm.
Robin's in the kitchen, dough beneath her hands, wheat from the fields and eggs from her land. Sunlight through the window, a warm golden glow. She's working hard to make that dough. With flour on her apron, loving each need, ground wheat fresh, sowing her seed.